Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film Muppets Most Wanted. It is the 8th theatrical Muppets movie, although it's not the most original Muppets movie, taking a page from the reboot movie where it's kind of like doing the same riff as the original The Muppets movie. This is kind of in the vein of The Great Muppet Caper. Reboots do that when you reboot the thing, but a lot of times you expect the sequel to go in a different direction, but the Muppets, I guess, chose not to do that with Muppets Most Wanted, which is kind of good and bad. The Muppets Most Wanted takes place directly after the Muppets took place in 2011, in which they sing a song about how sequels are never as good as the original, which is kind of true, and how they're a viable franchise now. And then they decided to go on a world tour managed by Ricky Gervais's Dominic Badgie, or Bad Guy, because the Muppets, only that he is really not a tour manager at all. He's the number two to an evil criminal named Constantine, who looks exactly like Kermit, except he has a black mole. Constantine switches places with Kermit, covering up his mole and putting a mole on Kermit, and Kermit is sent to a Russian prison in Siberia known as the Gulag, where Tina Fey is the warden, and he's there with Danny Trejo, Ray Liotta, and Jermaine Clement. And then the Muppets are still touring and believe that Kermit is still with them, even though he's acting kind of strange in a badly disguised voice that Constantine is doing. And they're being investigated by Ty Burrell's Interpol French agent and Sam Eagle of the CIA, because they realize that there are burglaries going on right next to all of the Muppet shows. And the Muppets are also getting wind of the fact that this might not be the real Kermit that they thought it was. Muppets Most Wanted, kind of like Star Trek Into Darkness in a little bit of ways, mines the territory that of the original franchise, and even mines the sequel as well. The Great Muppet Caper, which was actually the second film in the original franchise, mines that whole same territory of a fun kind of 60s caper kind of comedy that doesn't feel as fresh, and it doesn't feel as new and revitalized as the last one did. And having the Muppets finally back on the big screen, this does just feel like another Muppets adventure. It doesn't feel as unique as last time, and certainly you have all the same people behind the camera as you did on the last film. The only person who's not involved is Jason Segel. Director James Bobbin, you have Brett McKenzie does the music again, and you even kind of actually have somewhat of a Flight of the Conchords reunion, because Jermaine Clement is in the Gulag and he's singing in it. You have Brett McKenzie doing the music and James Bobbin directing it. So if you ever wanted kind of Flight of the Conchords to make it to the big screen, this is probably as close as you're ever going to get. One thing that helps it a lot is the musical sequences are always really good. That felt just like Flight of the Conchords musical sequences from the TV show, particularly I'll Get You What You Want. There's a song with Celine Dion, which I still liked, but I wasn't as into. It's so well directed that you can't help but get into it. So I think that's something that is a plus to it. And I like all the Muppet jokes. I generally like Muppet humor. It kind of got me through, even though I kind of knew I wasn't as into the plot as last time. And I was kind of thinking, like, so the last one is led by Jason Segel, and this one's led by Ricky Gervais, Tina Fey, and Ty Burrell. And I kind of wish it was more just Muppety and less interested in having celebrity co-stars. I don't really mind the cameos. That's always been a thing throughout Muppet movies. People seem to bring it up more now because it's more considered lamer at this point in time. But there's been cameos in Muppet movies ever since there were Muppet movies, so it's par for the course. I think it's kind of a badge of honor if you're a celebrity and you get to have a cameo in a Muppet movie. And this one had some great cameos, you know, from Lady Gaga to Tony Bennett to Usher as an usher at a wedding, which is like which I really love that. It's a stupid idea, but it's a funny idea, and that's like kind of Muppet humor, and I always like that about the Muppets, and I like how self-referential and self-deprecating they can really be. I still actually thought Ricky Gervais did a pretty good job with them, and even he did a little reference to the dance he did on The Office, and I think he was generally like pretty good with the Muppets, and all the human co-stars were very good. Ty Burrell kind of works with family comedy. I feel like he could show a little bit more range, but he feels like really adept at doing kind of family comedy, obviously because he's in 2 family films right now. And Tina Fey was actually pretty decent as well as Danny Trejo. If you're going to continue doing Muppet movies, and I don't know if they will or what's going to happen, and this felt like an obvious like grab maybe towards international box office because it's relying a lot more on the Muppets in Europe and things like that, although it wasn't incredibly complimentary to France and Europe either. If they do wind up making another one, I'd like them to do something different. And that was kind of the cool thing about when the Muppet movies came back in the 90s, is there's like a Muppets Christmas Carol and Muppet Treasure Island and Muppets in Space. Those were different ideas than those original 3 films. And to kind of go back, it just doesn't feel really worth our time. And I can kind of understand why maybe, this movie didn't do as well and not as many people are into it, because like to remake the first one, the Muppet movie, that's certainly one thing. But I think when you're doing it again, it was cute once, but I kind of felt like there was more to it than you just doing this. The Muppets, I hope, can continue to make kind of different kinds of movies and maybe parody a kind of movie that they haven't done before. I don't want the Muppets to become stale, and I don't really want to go through another period of them kind of disappearing. It was a fun sequel, and I had a good time. And I was thinking about this at the short that played before it, which was a Monsters University short. And Monster University is another thing where it's like, it's not a great idea, but I like the original. I love those characters, but despite, its limitations and me not liking what it's exactly doing, it was funny enough that I was fine with it. And I feel like the same way with Muppets Most Wanted. It's like, yeah, I can criticize it for not being entirely original and not taking the Muppets into a completely new place, but at the same time, I had a good time. I generally think it's a good movie, despite those kind of limitations and doing a rebooted franchise. And I like its dumb Muppet humor, like Christoph Waltz doing a waltz. Sometimes when I watch an old Muppet show or a Muppet sketch, or I watch the Muppets Christmas special, not the Christmas Carol, but the Christmas special from the 80s almost every Christmas, and I laugh at like the dumbest jokes from them, it satisfied me on that level completely. Maybe not as much as the last Muppets film, but it still did, and I'm the type of person who will see any Muppet film that's in theaters. I saw Muppets from Space. I don't know why I brag about that, but I do. I will still see them, and I still think it's a good movie, and if you need a movie to take your kids to that isn't Frozen for the 8th time, this film is just, another decent movie from the Muppets, and I think I'll always be someone who will check those out. And if you're someone like that, you'll have a good time with Muppets Most Wanted, and it'll just satisfy it to the basic level, but it won't have you going out and being in love with the Muppets as much as maybe the last movie did. So if you've seen Muppets Most Wanted and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. I'm not sure, but I think I wore this exact shirt when I shot my last Muppets review. Not sure. I don't wear this shirt enough in videos, so might as well.